Bills Mafia, what's going on? I'm Fernando Schmude, that's your leading the charge. And today I have a great guest on the show, someone that I've been trying to bring on for a long time now, and finally we could make it work. Ajay Cybulski, thank you so much for joining me today, brother.
Yeah, thank you, Fernando. Looking forward to the conversation. We got training camp coming up here in a couple of weeks, so really an exciting time for Bills Mafia and media that's covering it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We can't wait for those practices and games to get back on track, right? We are almost running out of content already, so gotta.
Yes.
But always we have some stuff to talk about the Bills, and today won't be different. But I want to start with a question. I always, as a Schmude guy from Brazil, it's not very usual when we think about names from Brazil like Souza, Silva. It's more common, all right? Cybulski is an unusual name for an American guy. Let me know where is this name originally from.
Yeah, so I'm Polish, Sicilian, but the Cybulski, the SKI, comes from my dad's side,
Okay.
Polish family. So I think like my great ancestors lived up in Poland. So yeah, that's kind of where I came from. Then I got my mom's the Sicilian side, so kind of a. I think I have like 6 to 8. My dad's brother, so my uncle, he's really into the ancestry.com and trying to figure out like where our ancestors came from and like where we all originated from. So he'd have a really good idea. But all I do know is that I'm Polish, a little Sicilian, got some Irish in me, German. I got a lot of different things, but majority Polish and Italian.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, my one Schmudi also comes from Germany and then Poland and that area. Back in the day, you didn't know for sure what part was Germany, what part was Poland, and it was kind of mixed up. So Schmudi comes from there as well. Nice to know. All right, Bills Mafia, hit that like button, subscribe to my own Fernando Schmude channel, but also support the Rumblings Network coming back and back on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all podcast platforms, right? So feel free to join us, support our work there, rate our content there, please. We count on you to support us, and I really appreciate it. So Ajay, let's start talking Bills. After all, Bills Mafia is out there listening to us for that, right? And my idea for today's show came actually from a tweet that you retweeted and commented about a ranking. I can't remember for sure what was the media that were creating that ranking, but they had Dalton Kincaid as the 18th best tight end in the league or something like that, and kind of difficult when we look a guy like Kincaid being rated so low, right? And it kind of gave me the idea to why not try to rank our guys. We had a lot of roster turnover on this Bills roster, so let's try to fit our guys in among their NFL peers and see how good or how bad are these Bills roster right now compared to the top players in the league, right? So that's the idea, and that Dalton Kincaid ranking was crazy low, right?
Yeah, that Delegate Cade ranking really shocked me because I don't know. I guess that there's probably a little bit of bias in there. I liked Kincaid coming out. I when I saw those four receivers go in the 2020 what draft was it now? Was it 2023, right? Yeah, 2023
Yeah.
draft. Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, all those receivers kind of flew off the board and I thought to myself, well, there's really one really good receiving option left that can really has good hands, reliable, and that was Dalton Kincaid. Comes in. I thought he got off to a little bit of a slow start. He was really used, especially with Ken Dorsey. I felt like he was really just that safety valve underneath, and he didn't really have much of a route tree to begin with. But I think Joe Brady kind of loosened him up there and kind of got him more involved. And he finished at a good pace at the all-time
Mhm.
reception rookie record, breaking Sammy Watkins' record that he set about a decade ago. And then
Mhm.
he passed Pete Matzelaars. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce that right. I'm only 23, 24, so I'm not really used to the old timers, but I try my best. But yeah, I was shocked at FanDuel. It was FanDuel that ranked it.
Mhm.
They had like a Brock Bowers, and I know Brock Bowers is a generational guy. Had a lot of success at a Power Five school. Played really well with several different quarterbacks that went in and out of there. But I just think that Kincaid, his upside, especially with this year with the loss of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, I just think Kincaid, the sky is really the limit for him. I have him around if I go off the top of my head, I would say around 100 targets, probably 80 catches, anywhere from like 700 and 900 yards. Maybe he could get that 1,000-yard threshold if he really becomes a prominent guy. But again, the ranking was a little shock to me, but like I said, it's all a ranking. It's all off-season kind of BS that we all just kind of sit around, rank this, rank that, and kind of just have our own opinions. So I'm sure they had a reason why they had him at 18, but I'm just going to disagree with it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you when you point out that they have a guy that hasn't played an NFL snap
Right.
already ahead
Like a
of
Noah
Kincaid.
Fant. Yeah, like a Noah Fant too was in there. Noah Fant, he was in there, and he's had a couple like good years, but
Mhm.
I think Kincaid's upside. Just, I mean, again, I would rank Kincaid above Noah Fant too. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
man, and no matter how special bowlers can become, like I remember when Kyle Pitts was coming out and everybody was crazy high on him, and he's been good, but he hasn't been that level that everybody expected, right? So you never know with the guys before they play an NFL snap and how they're gonna adapt, how they're gonna be used by their offensive coordinator. So there are a lot of variables, right? And I think we can be pretty confident with Kincaid. We saw him becoming the top target for the Bills since Joe Brady uh, took over, right?
Yep.
So he's been there. He's been this guy for the Bills. So I think it's pretty fair to be confident with Kincaid as a ranking better than this one. But we're gonna talk later about the pass catchers and those guys. Let's start with defense. I think it's the offensive skill position, especially, might be the most exciting positions to rank here. But so let's start from defense side of the ball, and the I like to start from the trenches and with the interior rushers, right? We have a pretty solid pair at the top of our depth chart with Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones, right? And people already forgot how good Daquan Jones was early in the year before his injury and how difficult it is to get back on the same season from a torn pectoral muscle. It's not common for guys to come back in the very same season they got injured, right? And he tried his best to help the team. Um, Ed Oliver had a kind of breakout year, right, and becoming more consistent and being that force that we expected him to become. How good can we rank those guys? I have some I have here some rankings, some tabs open here with some rankings from Pro Football Focus and even my Madden ratings because that's a place where I can at least look at the guys easily, find the names and oh, this guy is good, not
Yeah.
following their ratings at all, but just to put the names together. And for example, in Madden, Ed Oliver is the 13th best defensive tackle, right? And in Pro Football Focus list for this season, it's a list for a month ago. They don't have Ed Oliver nowhere near the top of the list. Ed Oliver is the 22nd ranked defensive tackle for Pro Football Focus. And look, we poke fun at Madden, but looking at this Pro Football Focus ratings, sometimes in rankings, man, some of them are pretty questionable, right? So how do you see your pair of defensive tackles against the top guys in the league, and where do you have them ranking among their top NFL players?
Yeah, I would have the Bills defensive tackles with DaQuan Jones and Ed Oliver, assuming healthy, probably top 5, top 10. The Ravens, obviously, Justin Matabuke, he had a 13 sack season. He's going to be there for a while. He's a game changer. You have the
Mhm.
Chris Jones of the world, the Chiefs, who he's just such a game changer that you'd probably put that up there. I know Christian Wilkins was on Miami last year, but now he's in Vegas. So there's a
Mhm.
couple names that kind of mind. Christian Barmore, another one from New England in division. Aaron Donald, he's retired, but he was a difference maker. So
Mhm.
there's some guys that stand out. But yeah, in unison, I think that Ed Oliver has potential to be a top 10, 15 defensive tackle. And again, he plays a different role in terms of he's not going to be the run stopper. He's going to be the sack guy, the guy that tries to create those explosive plays, those game changing plays. And you saw that more last year. He was questioned going into the season with that contract. Everyone thought he was overpaid. Now I think there's been some contracts coming in where he's kind of slipped down and the contract looks like an absolute steal, which is kind of happening with Josh Allen, which again, I'm sure that or, Brandon Beane's going to kind of restructure that to give Allen a little bit more money here coming up so he can kind of
Yeah.
stay pace with these quarterbacks. Daniel Jones should not be making more than Josh Allen. But, yeah, so I think with Daquan Jones healthy, and I think with Oliver there, I think they're a very solid tandem, top 5, top 10 duo that can get it done. And again, it's going to come down to depth this year with this team. It always has. I think they tried it with Quentin Jefferson, the Vernon Butlers. And I say this a lot because I think the role that, Deshaun Williams and Dwayne Carter and
Hmm.
those guys, Austin Johnson, they're going to have to play a pivotal role. And I know that Ed Oliver saw an uptick in snaps last year over 70%. So you saw less of a rotation, which was kind of a surprise because Sean McDermott's so reliant on those, rotational pieces on the defensive line. But Daquan Jones is getting older, so you could see more opportunity for like an Austin Johnson or Dwayne Carter to get some run. And I think Ed Oliver, you're going to see him still get those 75% of the snaps. But if you can have a guy come in, be reliable in those 25%, that would be a good thing for this defense. And I think they're going to need it. They need to stay fresh. But yeah, I'd rate them top 5, top 10 D tackle duo in the NFL.
As a duel, right? Yeah, I agree. As a duel, they are awesome. And the funny thing with the interior defensive line guys is they are, for example, Oliver and Jones. They are asked to do different things, right? So it's hard to compare them. They are so good at what they
Right.
do, and at the same time, so different from each other, right? So when you gotta rank the top 10 defensive tackles, which role are you talking about? Because
Right.
right,
3
it
tech, 1 tech. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so it's tough to do so. But for example, in this Pro Football Focus, if they have Chris Jones one, Dexter Lawrence, then Quinnen Williams, Derek Brown, Ken Hayward, DeForest Buckner, Javon Hargrave, Simmons, Jeffrey Simmons from Tennessee. I love the guy.
Yeah, he's
Jalen
good.
Carter, ninth,
Yep.
and Christian Wilkins, 10th. So some great names here, but when we start to get to the near the 10th name, and then the guy from the Ravens that you mentioned was the 11th, Madubuike, right? And
Yep.
Barm 12th. I think Oliver is around there in this range, like
Right.
I honestly I like Christian Wilkins, but I don't know if I'd take him over Ed Oliver, to be honest. I think Oliver is a tremendous player and has shown good potential recently. So, and Daquan Jones, at what he does, I think he's awesome as well. So I think they are in this range and in 10th to 15th, depending on what you ask from defensive tackle. And as a duo, they are a top 10 duo in my opinion for sure because they complement each other so well. And man, Daquan Jones before the injury, he was playing an All Pro level. If people
Oh,
don't
yeah.
remember, so he being back in at full health, it will be awesome for the Bills. But then the edge guys where we've struggled with Von Miller's injury and coming back earlier than probably the ideal, right? And Greg Rousseau has been good, but still he's being nicked up here and there, and it has limited him maybe to achieve his full potential. And Ajay Peneza, who's been a rotational piece, but it seems Sean McDermott is counting more on him now on, and he even mentioned like I remember recently when he was asked about Groot, he was like, "Yeah, I expect more from Rousseau and for Epineza now as starters." He kind of tapped them as the starters already. So looking at those edge players, where do you think we have them ranked there? And this is an area where we lost Floyd and we need guys producing there, right?
Yes. So I'm putting a piece together tomorrow for Batavia Daily News. Go check it out,
Mhm.
thedailynewsonline.com. And I'm putting together a piece just about the importance of kind of just breaking down the defensive edge rush room, the whole defensive line actually in general, but specifically really trying to focus on this defensive end room because it's tough. Since 2016, the Bills have only had two 10-plus sack guys. It was
Mhm.
2016 was Lorenzo Alexander, who just had a freak year, just came like it was like grandfather time for him, and he just erupted. It was like always been like a big fan of the community. All the fans love him, so it was cool to see him kind of ball out for a season. And then Leonard Floyd last year, who's now with San Francisco, who they lost. So you got Leonard Floyd and Bosa there. So obviously that group's really good. All the teams like the T.J. Watts, the Myles Garrett's, all the teams with that. I mean, those are just studs. You got to have those teams ranked. Trey Hendrickson from Cincy, Joshua
Mhm.
Hines Allen from Jacksonville had 17
Yeah,
and a half sacks last year.
that's a
Khalil
new.
Mack.
That's
Yeah, yeah. Max Crosby's, Micah Parsons, Montez. Like the Bills do not have Aiden Hutchinson's, Hassan
yeah.
Reddick, who's now with the Jets, and they have they're loaded there in New York. So I I have trouble with this defensive end room because, like you said, it really boils down to what Rousseau and Epinesa are.
Mhm.
You've seen flashes with Rousseau, but again, he's had trouble staying healthy, and I think that there's still some fine tuning to his game in terms of pass rushing. Setting the edge has been his go-to. Like he can set the edge, he can force the running back to the middle in those gaps, A gap, B gap, but he struggles, I think, finishing plays on the outside. So I want to see him finish more plays as a true pass rusher. Epinesa, same thing. He's gotten some hands on the ball, made some splash plays, but what is he going to be? Von Miller's a big question mark. Like I said in my story, like that was like that's what Brandon Beane thought was the answer to his prayers following that 2021-22 season was we're going to get a first ballot Hall of Famer coming off his second Super Bowl, and he's going to come right in and ball out. And he did. Like he had 8 sacks in 11 games. He had 2 against the Chiefs. He had
Yeah.
2 against the Rams. So he showed up in big games. But the problem was the ACL, and then he just deteriorated last year. So it's hard to rank the Bills' defensive line because, or edge rusher group specifically, because of the
Mhm.
fact that what's Epinesa? If you rank him on what he's been, if you rank the Bills' pass rushers on what they are right now and like what you've seen from last year, I mean, you'd probably say bottom 10 in the NFL.
Yeah.
But if you can get more from Rousseau, he can develop, and a Von Miller can become like even a 6 to 8 sack guy, man, and like show up in the playoffs and be that closer that they wanted him to be. I think you could have an average pass rushing unit, but they need a guy most importantly to step up and show out when it matters most because that's the reason, in my opinion, the Bills have not gotten over the hump in the past 4 years.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, man. Pro Football Focus have Rousseau at 26th in their list, and I think it's fair, because when you look at the names ahead of him, you can make a case for them. I think 25th, sorry, and right ahead of Matthew Judon, who had an injury last season, but he was awesome before that, right?
Yep.
And man, some of the names ahead of Rousseau that I discuss a little bit, like Van Ginkel is right ahead of him. Brennan Graham, who's I think is really aging a lot now. Those
Mm-hmm.
guys are very questionable. But then soon you have Brian Burns, Montez Sweat, Will
Yep.
Anderson at 20, 21st. Those guys are pretty comparable, I think, to Rousseau. And Rousseau is really good against the run, but as a pass rusher, I think those guys are a little bit better than him right now. Even Alex Highsmith from Pittsburgh at 19, and Reddick that you mentioned is 18th. So
Yep.
yeah, it's a premium position. We know the top 10 is loaded, right? We have guys here like
Oh yeah.
uh, Hendrickson is 9, Khalil Mack 7th, who kind of resurrected his career in the last year, and Hutchinson, Crosby, Watt, Bosa, right? Micah
Yep.
Parsons number 2 and Miles Garrett number 1. It's obvious that we don't have a guy at this level. Unfortunately, Von Miller was supposed to be that guy, and unfortunately, with the injury, right? But I'm hopeful with Vaughn, man. I'm hopeful that he this year, without thinking about um, needing to recover and strengthen his knee and his muscles, and just focus on playing and being the best football player possible. And especially with the way he's taking on all this conversation about his person, right? He's like with a chip on his shoulder, and he wants to prove the world wrong. He wants to prove everybody that he still has some gas left on the tank. So I'm hopeful with Vaughn. I think, to be honest, that's the guy that I have more hope, more even than Rousseau or Epinesa having an extra gear. And I think he can be a decent complementary piece. Maybe the Bills will be able to save him for passing downs and late in the
Right.
games, and he might be able to produce at a good level this way. And after all, that's all that the Bills need from Von Miller at this stage of his career, right?
Yeah, and then you look at the depth there. You got, Casey Toolhill, who kind of had his best season in Washington. He kind of had trouble getting on the field early in his career, but we'll see what he can do. That's really a guy like I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I've ever watched Casey Toolhill play, so that'll be something in training camp. Same with Dewan Smoot from Jacksonville,
Mhm.
another guy that they gave him enough money to think like maybe not a lock, but he has a better chance of making it than not. And then again, the rookie they drafted in the 6th round from Troy, Javon
Yeah,
Solomon, who led the FBS. He'll be interesting. He's more of like it's weird. The Bills, man, like they go after these like freaks like Epinesa, Rousseau, and then they signed Von Miller, and now they're going after like Solomon, who's like a 6'1", 270, 280 lighter guy, bendier guy. So we'll see what Von Miller. I'm excited to see Von teach him. I'm sure we'll see a lot of that throughout training camp, trying to get Solomon ready. They need someone to step up as a fourth
mm-hmm.
DN because I don't think Epinesa, I'm sorry, but I'm not saying he's reached his ceiling, but I think he kind of is who he is at this point. Rousseau, I still think there's more of a trend up there with him.
Yeah.
But like I said, you're right. Von Miller, he's talking the talk and he's talked the talk, but we'll see if that can actually correlate to play. But I do have confidence, like you saw with Trey White, that maybe coming off that injury after a second year, that mentally, physically, both aspects of himself will be better.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And Solomon, that's a guy that I'm keeping an eye on. I'm really excited for him. It's tough sometimes to get so excited about fifth, sixth round picks. It's kind of unfair to the guys sometimes when we expect too much for those guys early on, especially, right? But I'm curious, man, because that's a guy that has gotten the job done, right? He's being able to sack quarterbacks. He has some long arms, despite not being a huge guy. He has some long arms and a skill set that might be interesting. So I'm keeping an eye on during training camps and preseason for sure. Hopeful that he can, just like I just said about Vaughn, we don't need Solomon to be an every down player now, but if he can be a solid pass rusher and come in and clear passing downs, right, it would be awesome for the Bills.
Yes, absolutely. I'm totally spot on.
Awesome. So going to the second level of that defense, and that's where I have the biggest hopes and the highest expectation for this linebacker duo, right? And despite Milano coming back from an injury, and it was a tough one, it's not the first time that Milano comes back from a lower body injury, a tough one, knee injury. And then Terrell Bernard, he's been my guy for a long time now, even when people didn't believe in him. And after this last season, I can't help myself but to be excited about those possibilities of having Bernard and Milano together, especially when we don't have Hyde and Poyer together anymore. And I kind of expect the Bills defense to start to rely more on the linebacker duo to be kind of what McDermott had with Quickly and Thomas Davis. And I know it's the highest level of expectation, but that's the type of production and potential that I see Milano and Bernard having together.
Yeah, top 5 unit. I think not only have they improved, I think with obviously you have Bernard and Milano back, so that's huge. I think they can play on the line of scrimmage. They can cover the guys. They can cover on the line of scrimmage. They can take tight ends in the slot. They can do everything you really want a true linebacker to do. So they're very versatile. But at the same time, I think their depth also improved. I know they're not crazy names, but instead of relying on an AJ Klein, you can maybe get a Deion Jones. You still have Dalen Spector in the mix, who I think this is going to be his make or break it year. I think he's a guy that he showed flashes, especially at training camp day 2 last year when he got the opportunity to call the defense, and players after the practice were really like fond of him and said he really carried the huddle well. And I remember Hyde and Poyer like speaking fondly of him, but it just never really clicked. He never got another opportunity after that. And then Bernard got hurt, and then Dodson kind of just took it away with the experience he's had in the system. So I think this linebacking core, not only is it better up top with Bernard and Milano being healthy and back, but you also increase the depth with Deion Jones, Nicholas Morrow, who Morrow's played in the NFL for a long time, had over 100 tackles last year. I know he wasn't the biggest, Eagles fans didn't love him. Whenever I go see signings, the first thing I do is I always click underneath the Twitter and I see what the other team's saying. So you kind of get an idea, and then you can kind of formulate your opinion looking at other things. And Morrow wasn't really that much of a favorite, but again, he did produce. So again, that's what the Bills may be asking for. So I really like this linebacker unit. I think Dorian Williams will be called upon more. Maybe see 10 to 15% of the snaps throughout the entire year. If someone goes down, I think he's the guy that slotted in. But I was listening to a Cover One show, and Uber Hansen was on there on under review on
Mhm.
Tuesday night, and he was saying like Dorian Williams, like the linebacker 3 is kind of an intriguing camp battle, and I would agree with that. Like, who's the guy that, if because Milano and Bernard, they play a physical game. Milano's 30 coming off a leg injury. Is he going to be the same player? Bernard's dealt with knee problems all year last year. Who's going to
Mhm.
be that reliable third guy? Is it Jones, Morrow, uh, Dorian Williams? Is it one of those three? Can one of those guys really propel, spearhead to that third spot? So I'm interested, but linebacker group, top 5, Milano and Bernard. Bills Mafia is going to be so happy to see those two back on the field. And the most important thing, Fernando, is them being healthy in January, because they cannot go into a game against the Chiefs again with AJ Klein and Terrell Dodson, and that just can't happen.
Yeah, man. As bad as I wanted to accept it when Bernard went down last season, man, it was difficult to expect the Bills to be able
Yep.
to compete against the Chiefs offense, like
Yep.
and now obviously we it's kind of unfair because Bernard made such a huge leap in his second season that everybody expects Dorian to be ready for this year, right? And it's not always the same, the development for those guys. And then enter Morrow. I feel like Morrow is a guy that they brought in last as a backup plan just in case Dorian isn't able to take that next step, right? A guy that
Right.
has experience calling the defense and so and man, and recently we saw all those guys already injured, right? It was kind of scary in the beginning of the preparation, and everybody's injured. But let's see how they come to training camps, and I feel like if everything goes wrong again, like we're down to our seventh linebacker, I feel like the seventh guy now is better than it was a year ago when we needed Klein
Yep.
to come in, coming from the couch to play the most important game of the year, right? Dion Jones was an all-pro back in the day. He isn't the same anymore, but he's pretty experienced and better than Klein at this point
Yes.
of their careers, right? So,
Yes. Yes.
just like you said, Spector, he has struggled to stay healthy, but when healthy, he's looked good. So the Bills have some interesting guys here, and at the top, man. Again, for the sake of comparison here, Pro Football Focus had Fred Warner number 1, Roquan Smith 2, Demario Davis third, and then Matt Milano fourth, right? Mosley fifth, and Lavonte David and Patrick Quinn seventh. When I need to criticize those lists are with things like that, man, we know that they love Tyrell Dodson, right? They had a pretty high rating for him last season, and no disrespect to Dodson, total man, I really respect the guy, and I feel like he could come in and do what was expected from him, right?
Yes.
Play his role, but he's 22nd, and Terrell Bernard is nowhere near to be found in this list of
Right.
32 names. So it's crazy to think about, and just like you said, Ajay, anybody that came to the Bills Twitter stratosphere to learn a little bit about Dodson or Bernard, everybody knows that Bernard is the best player in this conversation. And if you
Yes.
take the tape and take the numbers, he's right there with Patrick Quinn. He's right there with the
Yep.
best guys in the league. So
Yep.
I can't help myself but to have Milano and Bernard in the top 10 linebackers in the league at least, man. I think it's not
Yep.
being a homer. I think if we saw those guys playing, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely. I think Bernard. I mean, man, and like you go at the Dorian Williams point. I think with a year in the NFL, I think the 2-lane system. I think there was probably some complications trying to learn like the new language of the Bills defense and really trying to figure out. You saw him; he was lost at times. He got like a couple snaps and he was already out of the game and replaced that quickly. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this linebacking core. Brandon Beane does a great job every year of diagnosing really like what kind of like they ran into. And like you said, they were 7 linebackers deep last year, so that's kind of like insurmountable. Not many teams can really like add a lot of depth to like kind of figure that out. But you can tell like, hey, we cannot rely on AJ Klein next year. We have to make sure that Milano's 30 years old. Bernard, he was banged up all season, got through it, and then couldn't play in the playoff game. We need to get that depth. And like you said, they're probably top 10 linebackers, top 5 duo in the NFL. But again, it all comes down to injuries, and the most important thing will be January. Matt Milano and Bernard have to be on the field if the Bills want to go anywhere.
True. Yeah, man. And then going to the secondary. right? And there we have. I don't think it's a big discussion about Taron Johnson as a nickel corner because, especially for what the Bills asked him to do, I can't see anybody better than him, right? And playing that weak side linebacker role in this defense, in the base defense, and then still being able to cover so well and be an interchangeable piece with some of the safeties in some of the Bills calls when disguising those coverage. So it's extremely impressive from Teron. He's up there with a top two, top three
Yep. All
nickel
pro.
corner, right? All pro. But then the outside guys, we have Benford and Douglas, guys that are kind of underrated in the league, in my opinion, and pretty solid duo as well. But individually, we're not talking about a top 10 corner maybe in the league, but I think they are right there in the top 15, top 20, especially when you single out those guys as outside corners.
Oh yeah, Rasul Douglas, ball hawk freak. I think he like that's the thing too. It's crazy, Fernando. Like he spoke at after one of the mandatory minicamp practices after he was being questioned. Is he upset about his contract? It wasn't that he just never goes to him. Like Stephon Diggs never goes to him. But like he was saying, like I really didn't know what I was doing last year. Like Hyde and Poyer just told me where to be, and I listened to them, and I really didn't even know the playbook. I just kind of went out there and did it. He had 4 interceptions since coming to
Yeah,
Buffalo at the trade deadline. Crazy ball hawk. I think that's what he does. That's what he does great. Maybe not the best coverage guy, but I still think the ball hawking ability and you're going to get beat in the NFL. These guys, these receivers are unbelievable nowadays, and you're put at such a disadvantage as a corner in this league. And then Benford, who I think is better than Rasul Douglas as a pure corner. You look at all
hmm
the advanced metrics with Benford. I don't have them in front of me, but I've seen multiple charts where Benford's been at the top of those graphs and all over the place. And I think he's just a guy that he's consistent. He's just a consistent guy on the outside. I would probably have him as a top 10 corner group in the NFL. I know the Jets have a really good group, Sauce Gardner, and the guys over there. So there's some good cornerback tandems in the NFL, but I would put the Bills, top 10, top 15 right there with. And again, I think with Benford and Douglas, who knows what'll happen. And then like you said, Teron Johnson, him and Kenny Moore are really the only guys that are slot corners. Declan Hardy's an interesting guy, the 6th round pick from Penn State. I'm excited to see the kind of shift from him to Saran Neal, the shift from Saran Neal to Declan Hardy. See if he can kind of find a spot in the 53-man roster in special teams and be that backup slot cornerback, that nickel corner. So we'll see if they can get more value out of him if Teron goes down. But all in all, secondary from top to bottom, I'm encouraged with. Sucks they lost Trey. Sucks they lost Poyer and Hyde, but they're building something, and we'll see how it goes. McDermott, they're a defensive back factory, Fernando.
Yeah, true. And even for Kair Elam, man, some good news coming from the mini camps, and I hope he can keep it up because now he's
Forgot
the
about
next man up, right? He's the
yeah,
next man up.
yeah,
And he might be able to take advantage of this opportunity when it arises, right? PFF has Rasul as the 15th guy, and they don't have Benford among the 32 in their list. What's crazy, in my opinion. Um, yeah, man. As a unit, I have no doubts they are a top 10 unit in this league, man. And now, as individuals, I think they are in between the 10th and the
yep,
20th.
yep, yep,
When talking about the outside guys, right? And then you add in Taron as the nickel guy, and it elevates our unit as a top 10 one. I
yep,
believe so. I believe they are good. They just don't have the Jalen Ramsey, the Sauce
right,
Gardner, the
right,
that guy Pat Surtain, a guy
yeah,
to keep on an
yeah,
island, But
yeah, yeah,
but together playing the Bills schemes, I think they do pretty well, and I see them as a top 10 tandem as well. So well served there as well, the Bills. And then the safety, that's the biggest question mark maybe in
yeah,
this defense right now because we don't know we not don't even know who are the starters, right? So Rep is emerging as a leader, but Edwards hasn't been on the field a lot, and then Bishop trying to learn the playbook and feel comfortable as quick as possible with the guy who might have the most athletic ability to add to this group, right? And tough to rate these guys against the best in the NFL because they even haven't played a lot, right?
Mhm.
even haven't played a lot. So
Yeah, you're
what to
thinking
expect there, man.
you're thinking probably like on paper. Again, like it's hard. Like you said, we haven't seen this group play. So what are they going to be? My favorite draft pick was Cole Bishop. I saw him at I saw him play down at the Senior Bowl. Talked to him. He was just, I mean, his mindset, his play on the field was just unbelievable. He just really stood out to me. That's why I talked to him. And then, of course, the Utah connection. So I had to ask him about Dalton Kincaid and how they kind of stayed close. I'm sure that played a big part in why the Bills took him. But
Mhm.
I really think like everyone assumes Edwards and Rapp, and maybe they'll get the nod week one, but I think Bishop is too good to not work his way in at some point, at least in a limited role, and maybe even eventually take over the Mike Edwards role. I think that Taylor Rapp is pretty safe. They gave him 3 years, a little over 10 million. That's a little more money. They only gave Edwards about 2 million a year, so it's not a lot of money for a guy that you're
Mhm.
hoping. I know Bishop's got like a $1 million cap hit, so he's only making like half the money, and he'll eventually be making 2 million by the end of his rookie deal. So I'm curious to see what they do there. But I would go bottom five right now. But again, Bobby Babich took Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer to heights that they probably didn't even imagine. So now Bobby Babich is the defensive coordinator. He's going to be calling this defense. He probably knows he's going to try and put these players in the best position. So I would not be surprised at the end of the year and you're like, wow, like Mike Edwards and Taylor Rapp were, phenomenal. Or Cole Bishop was phenomenal.
Mhm.
D. Delaney was, he came right in. D. Delaney
Yeah.
is a cheap signing and, balled out with DeMar Hamlin, who's had a really solid mandatory minicamp, who's again a year removed from that scary incident. Maybe he makes a play. So they got guys, they got names. Cam Lewis, another one thrown there that could potentially
Mhm.
work his way in. But yeah, there's those six guys right there. You'd say bottom five on paper, but again, with Bobby Babich at the helm, what he did with Hyde and Poyer, it's hard not to be like, well, they could probably be like a top, 15 unit if they really put it together. And I mean, again, individually, I think none of these guys are really considered in the top probably 20, 30. I wouldn't even
Mhm.
put them there, but again, they have potential, and if they put it together, I'm excited to see. I think Edwards will be a little inconsistent. I think he's a go big or go home guy. There'll probably be games where we're like, oh, Mike Edwards played great. Then there'll be games
Mhm.
where he had 2 pass interference penalties and a couple missed tackles. But that's his game, and that's what he's done,
Mhm.
and that's why he was good with the Chiefs. So yeah, bottom five. And but again, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year we're like, wow, Bobby Babich did something.
Yeah, man. And the funny thing is that if you go back to 2017 and look at Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, those guys aren't like
Yep.
top 20. They aren't top 30 even,
Yep.
especially Poyer. Poyer was nobody
Nothing.
knew Poyer,
Nothing.
man.
Yeah.
Right?
Nothing.
Hyde was okay. That's a solid nickel corner from Green Bay, right?
Yeah.
But Poyer, and so the questions were fair as well, and that's why I have some expectation. I think, just like you said, they have the names to have a competition and let the best players see the field most often and produce. So I think uh, totally agree with you regarding Bishop. I think he will find his way onto the field at the bare least, like Matt Milano early with Raymond Humber. Remember how they rotated
Yep.
Milano in and
Yep.
out all the time, and until he
Yep.
felt really comfortable later in the year. I feel like the Bills are giving more opportunities. It's not like, oh, McDermott doesn't play rookies. Not about it, but we've
No.
seen recently Kincaid, Torrance. They have given them the opportunities to play, to make mistakes, to learn from them, to stay learning and become more comfortable on the team, especially by the playoff time. So I feel like they are aware of the necessity of having Bishop learning and playing and getting his his opportunities so he can be ready by the playoff times by for a run late in the year, right? So that's really important. Let's flip sides, man. Let's go
Let's
to
flip.
the
Let's
offense.
flip.
Let's go to the offense and quarterback. I don't want even to talk about it, right? Because top two is the minimum, man. And then I need to again criticize the PFF list. They have Josh number 4, and I don't get it. They had Josh as their best rated quarterback last year, right? He was the top graded quarterback by PFF, but he wasn't the MVP. And the MVP was Lamar Jackson. And now they have him behind Lamar and behind Burrow, like who was injured last season. So I can't make sense of it, right? But I think honestly, man, top two is the bare minimum for Josh, and I honestly feel he's closer to Mahomes than the other guys are close to him.
Yeah, it's tough with Burrow because Burrow is just like an anomaly of a quarterback. He's like the Brady type. Like he just
Yeah,
like he you can't like he doesn't have like the crazy tangible. He doesn't have all like the physical traits that Josh Allen or even a Pat Mahomes has. But Burrow is very methodical. He's smart. He's had good defenses throughout his career. That's really helped him, like Brady has early in his career. He's gotten to a Super Bowl. He beat the Bills head to head. And Josh Allen, when they, and again, the Bills at that point, it felt like with Dorsey, they were just kind of reeling and reeling. They were getting by. I know they won 13 games, but it just didn't feel the same. And then they had so much like adversity that season. It felt like as much as you wanted to be like, oh, they're gonna come together and really get over this. It just kind of felt deflated. The balloon kind of just lost all its helium there at the end, and that was that. But yeah, I mean, Allen, I would say top two right now. Behind Mahomes, and you probably put Burrow, Lamar. I would even throw CJ Stroud in the top five, maybe. I don't know that's tough with like again quarterback rankings is so like it's so like biased and like what you think. So again, I don't think you
I
can
have
argue.
Josh number one. Sorry, but not sorry.
Yeah, like I don't think you can argue the fact that like Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, but like is Lamar ever going to be good enough to beat the three I just previously mentioned? Like that's where I'm at with Lamar. Like he's a very good player, one of a kind, like freak athlete, can do everything you want him to do, but in the big moments and against really good defenses, even when he's had, his like we've talked about him earlier, Patrick Queen, the
Mhm.
Justin Madubake, the defensive tackle, the Roquan, like not Roquan Smith. They've had all these guys that are very good at that position, Marlon Humphrey. So it's tough for me, but I will say again, I don't want to keep this too long. It's quarterback. Josh is top two. Josh is top
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
two.
And then the offensive line, right? And as a unit, we've seen them making strides and becoming one of the top units in the league. I think last season we have some pieces changing places. McGovern moving to center. Morse is not out there anymore. Edwards is a pretty dependable guy. I trust Cromer a lot, and Edwards is a guy that Cromer trusts a lot. So that makes me kind of comfortable with him. But since we're talking about individual rankings as well, I think Dion Dawkins might be the highest guy in this Bills offensive line when we think about among the best in the NFL, right? But how high he would be in an NFL list against other offensive linemen?
Yeah, I mean, one sack allowed last year, like in over 600, 700 snaps. So that's a start. That's really good. I think physically last year was something different for him. I think Josh Allen talked about it all season, because they would always ask about Dion. Dion's just such a he knows what he's doing. He loves to be in the center of attention, but he's just a genuine dude. And I think people, especially the
Mhm.
media, likes talking to him, likes getting answers, his perspective. And he just the way he said he took care of his body and just the mental aspect of his game and how he just felt the best he ever has. I went into last year thinking, maybe like top 20, but I would put him around top 15, maybe top 10
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
Dion. You go to Torrance, started every snap for the Bills last year. Rookie, I mean, the sky's. I honestly, I think the sky's
Yeah,
the limit for that
man,
guy.
I
His anchor is just incredible. He
love
gets
him.
bullied. He gets bullied sometimes, but again, he's a rookie. He'll
Yeah,
learn and get stronger. Like you mentioned with McGovern, we don't know where he's going to rank at center, but I think again, like he was very like he was asked at the podium, how do you feel about being a center? And like you said, like he's like, dude, I've been ready for this. Like this is my
Mhm.
position. So he seemed very confident after some people thought like Cedric Van Pran Granger from Georgia, who's one of the was given an award to be the best center in the SEC at Georgia, thought that he could make a run. I think it's McGovern's position, and that's going to
I
be it.
agree.
I think Edwards will slot at the left guard. He was a starter on a Super Bowl team, so it's not like he's some slack. He did really good in the jumbo set last year. But yeah, I
Mhm.
like this offensive line. Then you get to right tackle Spencer Brown. What's he going to be? I mean, if he can stay healthy, I think again the sky's the limit for him. He's got all the tools. I thought he really made a step forward last year. I was I wouldn't say like a big supporter, but I thought they should have drafted like a Wanye Morris in the third round from Oklahoma or done
Mhm.
something to kind of give some competition. They said nope, we're gonna we're going to let Spencer Brown ride this out. They believed in his ability to be a right tackle in this league, and it turned out to work out. He stayed healthy. He was dominant. So across the board, man, this offensive line is a unit. Although they did lose Mitch Morrison, that's a huge loss. And there's going to be some scrambling around. They traded Ryan Bates to Chicago. Again, that was more of a depth piece. I would say a top 5, top 10 unit. And I look across the league. The Browns have a really good unit. They know Wyatt Teller comes to mind, Jedrick Wills Jr. The Chiefs obviously have a really good line. Joe Thuney, Donovan Smith, the left tackle, Juwan Taylor, the right tackle, even though he always false starts. Baltimore,
Yeah.
Ronnie Staley, Morgan Moses, really good tackles there. Detroit's got a good
Eagles.
line. Yeah, Eagles. Yeah. And even though they lost Kelsey, it's still, they still got Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson. So they got names, and Dallas has a good line. So there's some good lines in this league, but I would go top 10 for the Bills.
Yeah, man, I agree. I recently wrote about some bold predictions for the Bills this year at Buffalo Rumblings, and one of them was having McGovern becoming an upgrade over Morse, because we had Morse playing at a good level, and we were kind of like, oh my God, now we don't have that good level center. But what if McGovern continues to impress? Because all he has done is impress since he arrived in Buffalo, right? He wasn't a regular starter for the Cowboys, and he became such a great regular starter for us at left guard. And now, just like you said, it's his favorite position. He can't wait to play center, right? So I'm anxious to see him playing there. And about Dion, man, I've been kind of harsh on him along the years. I like the guy a lot. I remember his rookie year. He came to Brazil. Shady was here, and he brought Dion as a rookie here, and everybody was like, "Who's this guy with Shady?" Oh, it's Dion, and he was a rookie. So he always been a great personality, but I always felt like, I don't know, man. This guy, I don't know. I can trust him. He's up and down sometimes. And even remember how he was a captain, and then the next year he wasn't a captain anymore, and some stuff going on with him. But it seems the last season it finally clicked for him, and he was in shape. He was playing physically. He was very nasty. The schemes have been good for him as well. The Bills using him as a puller, not just him, as Spencer Brown as well, and he's playing awesome, doing whatever he's asked to do. And yeah, I have him around top 15 offensive linemen in the league right now for sure, and I hope he can keep it up. The Bills need it, right? Then we have the skill positions, right? We have the wide receiver group, the tight ends, and the running back. So feel free. Where do you want to start talking about those skill position guys? We have plenty of big names in the league, and looking at those PFF lists, man, the Bills don't have many names around top 10 or top 15. We have plenty of potential there, right? And I feel like it's debatable, especially with running backs. Maybe we started running back with James Cook, who played great last season. Where do you think he could rank among the NFL best?
Yeah, so running back is an interesting one. I really like Ray Davis, older guy, 24 years old. We've done the spiel. He, played with 3 colleges, all over 1,000 yards at each school. I like him. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, those guys. I'm sorry, I'm moving to James Cook now. But like Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams from LA had a really good season. What's DeAndre Swift going to be? Joe Mixon in Houston now. But will they be okay? But I mean, this Bills running back core, I don't think it's bad. I mean, James Cook was, if he can clean up the dropsies at the most important times and try and limit those fumbles and putting the ball on the ground, I really do like Cook. Will they resign him? I don't know, because I don't know if the Bills will go about it that way. But you have a guy in James Cook. You have Ray Davis, who can catch out of the backfield and run, physical runner. And he can catch, very underrated in that aspect, that I think that Joe Brady will take full advantage of. You're looking at a good unit. The Jets have Breece Hall, who's a really good runner. There's some really good pure runners in this league. Like, you got just like pure really good guys. Mostert had a crazy year last year. I think that was more like offense. Bijan Robinson, another name that's probably corrupt. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery is probably the top tandem, I'd say. Like Detroit, that they're just Ben Johnson loves to run the ball there. So there's a lot of names, but again, it's hard to just rank, but I would go as a unit. I'm top 10. The Bills are at running back. I think. And now that we're going over this, I feel like the Bills still they're not as like good on paper as they have been the last couple of years, but they still have a good enough roster to do some special things.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, man. When I look at the top names, I don't have Cook there yet. I think Cook has the potential to be there if, just like you said, he cleans it up and starts to avoid those heartbreaking drops. Right? He literally left like 4 touchdowns on the field last season with
Yep.
some drops, right?
Yep.
And then the fumbles and so this kind of stuff he gotta clean it up. But if he does, he might be in the conversation. But when you look at McCaffrey, Henry, Taylor, Chubb, Bijan,
Chubb.
Saquon, Brees Hall, right? I
Yeah.
don't think Aaron Jones. I don't think I can have James Cook among those guys yet. But in the
Agree.
next year, man, when we start to talk about Mostert, Travis Etienne, I love Etienne, but I think Cook has the potential to be right there. Kenneth Walker,
Yeah.
So he's out there knocking to enter that top 10 discussion, and I think he's capable of doing so. Uh, just got to clean up a little bit his game, and he will have the opportunity because Joe Brady want to run the ball. The Bills want to run the ball, right? So he will have some opportunities to be able to do so. And then the pass catchers, like let's start with Kincaid, the tight ends, because that was what actually motivated me to have this subject here today. So 18th is unacceptable for Kincaid, in my opinion, right? But where do you see him? How can we rank him a little bit higher? How high can be Kincaid in this list? Because Kelsey and Kittle is the top two among everybody, I think, right? Mark Andrews got injured last season and might be the right there as well, but that's the top notch of the tight ends in the league has been for the last few seasons. And after those guys, man, it's debatable. I think Kincaid has the potential to get there. Might not be there yet, but he's a top 10 guy for sure, in my opinion, man.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Patty French fries from Pittsburgh, I'd have Kincaid over. Brock Bowers, I'd have Kincaid over. Jake Ferguson from Dallas, I'd have Kincaid over. Noah Fant, I'd have Kincaid over. Kyle Pitts, it's tough because you want to say like he had 1,000 yards in his first season and then he kind of tailed off, but he has hit 1,000 yards, and I think his quarterback play's been so bad it's really hard to like give
Yeah,
like blame to Pitts. But he's had issues. I would be okay with Pitts ahead of Kincaid at this point. Dalton Schultz, I'd have Kincaid over. I think Schultz is a good player, but I think Kincaid
mm,
offers more as a guy after the catch and just getting open and as an actual like game changer. Like Dalton Schultz is a good guy to have as a reliable pass catcher in the red zone and stuff like that. But as a true pass catcher, like game changer, I'd take Kincaid. You look at Cole Kmet, that's a tough one, but I'd probably give the edge to Kincaid, so I'd be okay with Kincaid over him. And then Evan Ingram, Trey McBride. Trey McBride had over 800 yards last year because I actually checked his stats when I saw him ranked at like 8 or 7, and I was like, what the?
mhm.
But he came on with the Cardinals. We'll see what he is. So I'd probably have Kincaid right now. I think he's right there with like Njoku and all those guys. Maybe a little less just because of experience, but I put Kincaid right at the bottom 10, and I'd even throw Knox like Dawson Knox
Yeah,
as a duo. I mean, this group. I mean, they're a top
yeah,
5 duo in the NFL. It's not even a question.
no doubt, man. Yeah, I think he's right there in the conversation of those guys, and we'll see this season. But for sure that they're better than Kincaid, it's a handful, and at the best, right?
Yeah.
The most that you can get is a handful over Kincaid for sure. And then the wide receivers guy, that's a group that we have a lot of questions and potential guys out there. I normally say that the Bills have a lot of lottery tickets on their hands, because we
Yep.
don't have a guy to talk about among the NFL best wide receivers yet, but they have several lottery tickets. Shakir has been awesome in this last run since Brady took over. Samuel is a guy that, just like when Joe Brown came to Buffalo and become a number one wide receiver, Samuel has the same kind of potential, or he was even better than what John Brown was before joining the Bills, in my opinion. So it's not unrealistic to expect Samuel to have a jump in his game, right? And then even Claypool can resurrect his career. Coleman with all the potential in the world. So yeah, we are talking a lot of potential, but man, we don't need all of them to play at their
Yeah.
best case scenario. We need maybe one, and the others to just be themselves, So how would you talk about this wide receiver room right now?
Yeah, they're definitely bottom five, right? Like
Mhm.
you can't deny that just because they don't have like we've gone around the defensive edge rushers. They don't have a like a TJ Watt, Miles Garrett, or even a like a
Mhm.
middle tier guy. They don't really have even that. So with this receiver group, I just I have hope because one, Josh Allen's there, and I've seen him make Robert Foster. I've seen him make Cole Beasley's had his best year. I've seen John Brown have 1,000 yards, like you mentioned. I've seen Dawson Knox, a third round pick from Ole Miss, who was never really utilized, have really good seasons in big games and big moments. I've seen Stephon Diggs get his career elevated. It'll be interesting to see how Gabe Davis does in Jacksonville this year with Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk and those guys. So, like you said, I think Shakir has a lot of potential, and we're talking about a lot of potential. But like you said, the lottery ticket. I think a lot of these guys are really playing. You look at Chase Claypool, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella, Justin Shorter. They're not all going to make the team. I think they keep seven this year. I think they'll keep seven. They've only done that once in McBean's tenure, so I
Mhm.
think they'll go back to that. They haven't done it the last couple of years just because they've had bona fide top two guys, and I think that these are guys are just like you said, fighting in there for their careers. Chase Claypool fighting for his career. Matt Collins
Mhm.
really has never played with a great quarterback. MVS, he's really he gets a lot of hate because he drops a lot of balls and he's kind of just been like that journeyman guy that really hasn't stuck anywhere and been like a big factor, but he's been good in big moments. And then the
Mhm.
top three: Samuel, Coleman, Shakir. I think they can be a good unit, and like I said with the safeties, if Bobby Babbage can elevate them, the safeties, I think Josh Allen has the potential to make these guys good. It's weird to see Josh Allen's passing line on FanDuel. It's like 3,700, which like he's hasn't done that since like 2019. So obviously Vegas might know something, and I do trust Vegas lines a little bit. But at the same time, Coleman, I mean, all the potential's there. Forget the 40-yard dash. Samuel
Mhm.
had 1,000 yards of Brady before. Like you mentioned, I think he can play that John Brown role. I think he's an X. I think he can play in the slot. I think Shakir can play in the slot. I think he can be a boundary guy. It's a lot of versatility across the room. So there's guys fighting for their careers, and there's a lot of versatility. And like the safety room with six solid guys that are going to fight for it. And in a couple of weeks, you're going to see all these guys battle it out, and hopefully the Bills make the right decisions.
No doubt, man. Ajay, I could keep talking Bills with you forever, man, but I'm running out of time. I really appreciate you taking your time to join me today. I feel like I'm pretty certain that Bills Mafia enjoyed a lot your participation here today. The doors of the Leading the Charge are always wide open for you. Whenever you want to jump on the show, you're welcome. I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, thank you. Make sure to go subscribe to the Rumblings Network. Obviously, I was with Buffalo Rumblings, so all the people there are great people, great content. Sarah Larson, Jay Spence, Bruce, all them there. Joe Miller, I know he's doing his own thing over the overreaction, but all the people at Buffalo Rumblings that kind of got screwed over, just make sure to support them. You can follow me on Twitter at Ajay Cybulski. I haven't been I've been really busy with work and doing other things, but I'm trying to keep up with my Bill stuff and NFL content while trying to chase the dream. So I will again thank you for having me, Fernando, and Leading the Charge is a good show. Make sure to again subscribe, like to Rumblings Network and Leading the Charge, and support these people because they're great at what they do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ajay. Thank you so much. Bills Mafia will be back with the show in Portuguese on Sunday for Brazilian Bills Mafia and Latin America. So subscribe to my own YouTube channel to don't miss a bit. Thank you so much, Bills Mafia, and go Bills.